They barge in, they demand, they crush whatever reason you have left. They didn't send an email, they didn't call, they came straight to my office. I was in a meeting with a client when my assistant Natalie poked her head into the room, looking awkward. "Elizabeth, there are two people waiting for you in the lobby. They say they're your parents." I felt my whole body freeze. Every moment from the past 3 years came crashing back like a violent storm. That night I was kicked out. Lauren's smug face, the false accusations, my father's cold eyes as he told me to get out of this house now. And now they were here? I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Tell them I'm busy." Natalie hesitated. "They said they'll wait, and they're drawing attention. If you don't come down, they might cause a scene." I clenched my jaw. I wasn't that scared, fragile girl anymore, but I also couldn't let them disrupt my workplace. I walked down to the lobby and saw them immediately. My parents looked wrecked. My father, who was always neatly dressed, now looked like he had aged 10 years. His graying hair was messy, his face gaunt, his eyes tired. My mother sat on one of the waiting chairs, her hands clenched together, her dress wrinkled and missing the elegance she used to pride herself on. I said nothing. They came to find me. They were the ones who needed to speak first. My mother broke the silence. "Elizabeth, sweetheart, we need to talk." "Sweetheart?" I let out a cold laugh. 3 years ago, they didn't hesitate to throw me out. Now they were using sweet words like nothing had ever happened. "About what?" I crossed my arms, my voice devoid of emotion. My father cleared his throat, avoiding my gaze. We were wrong, Elizabeth. We shouldn't have treated you that way. We let our emotions cloud our judgment. But, I raised an eyebrow. My mother lowered her head, her voice trembling. "We really need your help." Here it was, the real reason. I leaned against the wall behind me, waiting for them to continue. "The restaurant isn't just going bankrupt," my father said, his voice lower. We've run into some legal issues." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Legal issues?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" My father bit his lip while my mother was on the verge of tears. "We're under investigation for tax evasion. Some of the loans also had irregularities. And—" He hesitated. "And?" I repeated, my voice colder this time. "If it's not resolved soon, we could face criminal charges." That sentence hit like a bomb. Tax evasion, financial violations, risk of prosecution. I took a deep breath. This wasn't just a mistake, they had gone too far. My mother quickly reached out to grab my hand, but I pulled back as if burned. "Elizabeth, you can save us. You're smart, you can figure something out, you can help us avoid this." I laughed, but there was no joy in it. "And why would I do that?" My father's expression hardened. "Because we're family." I felt something inside me snap, like an invisible thread breaking. 3 years ago, they took everything from me, cast me out like a stranger, and now, staring down the barrel of total collapse, they suddenly remembered I was family. "Family?" I repeated the word, as if testing whether it still held any meaning for me. And the answer was no. My family wasn't the people who abandoned me. My family was the one who always believed in me, lifted me up, gave me a chance when no one else would. My family is Aunt Margaret. I looked at them for a long time. 3 years ago, I would have done anything to earn their approval, but now, I realized something important. I didn't need them anymore. I slowly shook my head. "Nope." My mother burst into tears. "Elizabeth, please. We'll lose everything." I looked at her, but there was no pity left in me. "That's the price you have to pay for the choices you made." Then I turned away, leaving them behind. This time, I was the one making the decision. And I chose myself. I walked away, leaving my parents collapsed on the lobby chairs. They had lost everything: reputation, money, future. But I couldn't care anymore, because I was no longer their puppet. But the story didn't end there. I wanted to believe that refusing to help them was enough, that I could return to my life without looking back. But I knew all too well. People like my parents never give up until they've drained every last thing they can cling to. And I was right. The desperate plea. 2 days after the meeting at my office, they came to my home. I had just gotten back from work when I saw my parents standing outside my apartment door. Their faces looked even more exhausted, like they hadn't slept in days. "Elizabeth, please, just hear us out," my mother begged. I crossed my arms. "I've heard enough." "We could lose everything," she cried. "We might go to court. We could end up in jail. Do you really want to see your parents go through that?" I took a deep breath and stared at them. 3 years ago, when you threw me out, did either of you think about how I would survive? My mother was silent, her eyes red and swollen. My father, as always, tried to take control. "We can fix this together. You're smart. You can come up with a plan, find a way to save the family." "No," I said, firmly. "There's nothing left to save." They couldn't understand. They thought I was just being bitter, that I would eventually give in if they begged enough. But what they didn't know was that I no longer held anger toward them. I simply didn't care. "Sweetheart, please help us," my mother tried again, but I shook my head. "You should get a lawyer. I'm not helping you avoid the consequences." I didn't give them a chance to say anything else. I turned and walked inside, slamming the door shut behind me, cutting off all their pleas. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. I had refused to help them, but what did that really mean? Their wrongdoing didn't just affect them. The restaurant owed wages to employees, debts to suppliers, and had evaded hundreds of thousands in taxes. If I stayed silent, innocent people would continue to suffer while my parents would try to escape responsibility like they always had. I picked up the phone and dialed the one number I knew would give me the right answer. "Aunt Margaret." "I knew you'd call." Her voice was calm but steady. I took a deep breath. "What do you think I should do?" She didn't hesitate. "You already know the answer. The only question is whether you're brave enough to do what's right." I closed my eyes. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I sent an email to the IRS, reporting all the information about my parents' tax evasion. I also contacted the Department of Labor about their failure to pay employees, and filed a complaint with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network regarding their illegal loans. I didn't do this out of revenge. I did it because I wasn't going to let them continue hurting other people. Everything happened faster than I expected. 2 weeks later, the restaurant was shut down. Their bank accounts were frozen for investigation. Suppliers sued them for unpaid debts. The IRS officially launched an investigation, and my parents faced fines of hundreds of thousands of dollars. It didn't stop there. The investigation expanded to include illegal contracts they had signed, falsified financial documents, loans with signs of fraud. Everything came to light. There was no way out. A few days later, my phone rang. It was Lauren's number. I hesitated for a few seconds, then answered. "What did you do?" Her voice was filled with rage. "What someone should have done a long time ago," I replied calmly. "You destroyed our family." I let out a cold laugh. "Family? No. You and our parents destroyed yourselves. I just made sure they were held accountable for what they did. You're a monster." "No," I said slowly. "I'm just the only one who's no longer being manipulated." I hung up. I didn't need to hear another word. 3 years ago, they kicked me out, made me feel like I was nothing. Now, I had closed the last door between me and them with my own hands. No more chains, no more burden, nothing tying me to them anymore. I was finally free. I set the phone down, staring at the dark screen. Lauren could call me a monster, but I didn't care. I wasn't the Elizabeth from 3 years ago anymore. Over the years, I had walked a path they never believed I could. I had shed the painful past and built a future with my own hands, one that didn't need validation from anyone. And now I was moving forward. My company was preparing for a major project, a multi-million-dollar contract that, if successful, could earn me a promotion to director. 3 years ago, I was just a new hire, working hard, trying to prove myself. But now, I was one of the best in the firm. I was no longer the girl constantly compared to Lauren. I was no longer the forgotten daughter. I was Elizabeth Carter, a top financial consultant. I attended meetings with senior executives presenting strategies I had spent hundreds of hours developing. I realized that here people respected me for my abilities, not for my last name. And then on a Monday morning, as I was making coffee in the office, the CEO walked into the meeting room and looked directly at me. Elizabeth, get ready. The board wants to discuss promoting you. I nodded, trying to keep a calm expression, but inside me there was a feeling I hadn't felt in a very long time. Victory. That evening, I visited Aunt Margaret. She was standing in the kitchen, stirring a fragrant pot of soup, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. I have some good news to share with you, I said, setting down my bag and pulling out a chair to sit across from her. She smiled, setting the spoon down. Is it about work? I nodded, the corners of my mouth lifting with pride. They're considering promoting me. If everything goes well, I'll become a director this year. Aunt Margaret beamed, her eyes filled with genuine joy. You deserve it, Elizabeth. I felt a wave of warmth spread through my chest. She wasn't jealous. She didn't look down on me. She was proud of me. We had dinner together, talking about work, life, and plans for the future. I no longer felt empty. I no longer felt alone. Because I had a family. A real one. After everything that happened, I began spending more time on myself. I learned to enjoy a quiet morning with a hot cup of coffee instead of rushing into work. I started practicing yoga, reading more, traveling with the people I loved. I had learned to live for myself. Sometimes, memories of my old family would still come back. I couldn't erase the past, but it no longer had control over me. They had disappeared from my life, and I no longer felt pain because of it. One day, as I was on my way home, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I didn't have to guess. I knew who it was. I hesitated for a second, then declined the call. There was nothing left to say. I had chosen my own life. No more manipulation, no more pain, only a bright future waiting ahead of me. Elizabeth's story isn't just a journey from pain to success. It's clear proof that real family isn't defined by blood, but by love and respect. Sometimes, to find happiness, we must have the courage to let go of toxic relationships, no matter how deep the bond may seem. No one has the right to control you just because they call themselves family. The greatest success isn't revenge, it's living a happy, free life under no one's control. I clenched my fists. What you think doesn't matter. The evidence is crystal clear. I pulled out my phone and opened a message I had secretly photographed from his phone last week. We need to increase the dosage. She still made it to the meeting last time. We can't let her keep winning. I held the screen up in front of Ethan. I kept this message, and I'm guessing the police will want to see it too. Ethan turned pale. Zoe, you can't do this to me. I looked at him, eerily calm. You did this to yourself. Just then, 2 officers came down the hallway. One of them pulled out a pair of handcuffs. Ethan Patterson? The officer asked, his voice emotionless. You're under arrest for attempted poisoning and conspiracy to cause grievous bodily harm. Ethan stepped back, but the 2 officers firmly grabbed hold of him. No, I didn't. Tell it to the judge, the officer cut in, snapping the cuffs onto his wrists. I watched as Ethan was taken away, the weight in my chest slowly lifting. It was over. But I knew this was only the beginning. 3 days later, the police arrived at Ethan's office with a search warrant. I received a call from Inspector Douglas, who was handling the case. His voice was deep and slow, but I could hear the tension behind every word. We found what you needed, Zoe. I sat up straight, my hand tightening around the phone. What did you find? Inspector Douglas took a deep breath before answering. A series of toxic substances hidden in a drawer in Ethan's desk. We also found documentation detailing the dosages and symptoms you experienced over the past 6 months. My chest tightened. I wasn't sure if I felt horror or relief. Documented everything? I asked, barely believing it. Not just that, Douglas continued. There are email exchanges between Ethan and Stephanie discussing the plan. They called it the slowdown plan. I closed my eyes, trying to stay calm. Slow down? What does that mean? I asked, though I already had a sick feeling I knew the answer. They wanted to gradually weaken you, make you miss key meetings without suspecting anything. At first, the dosages were small, just enough to make you feel unwell, but recently we found notes about increasing the dosage, enough to hospitalize you longer. My stomach turned. They didn't just want me to lose my job. They wanted me drained, helpless, unable to fight back. So that's why I was always sick at the most critical times, I said, my voice dropping. Yes, Douglas confirmed. Every time you were about to close a major deal or give an important presentation, Ethan and Stephanie interfered. I gripped my phone tighter, my hand trembling with rage. We have enough evidence to charge both of them, Inspector Douglas continued. Ethan was arrested this morning. We've also issued a warrant for Stephanie's arrest as soon as she's released from the hospital. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. What charges will they face? Douglas hesitated before answering. Conspiracy to cause grievous bodily harm and attempted poisoning, but given the severity, the prosecutor is considering elevating the charges to attempted murder. Those last two words froze me in place. Attempted murder. I had known they were cruel, but hearing it confirmed by a police officer chilled me to the bone. I clenched my fists so tightly my nails nearly dug into my skin. They won't get away with this, will they? Douglas sighed. With the amount of evidence we have, it'll be very hard for them to escape serious consequences. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Good. A few hours later, I got a call from an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Stephanie's weak voice came through. Zoe. I clenched my jaw. Do you seriously have anything left to say to me? I didn't have a choice. Her voice was hoarse, like she'd just come out of a nightmare. Ethan told me this was just a way to slow you down a bit. I didn't think it would go this far. I let out a laugh, but there was no joy in it. Is that so? And I'm supposed to believe you? She took a shaky breath. I really didn't want to hurt you. But you did, I cut her off, my voice sharp. You watched me, found ways to weaken me, and when I still stood strong, you and Ethan decided to increase the dosage. Don't tell me you didn't know what was going on. Stephanie stayed silent. I lowered my voice, emphasizing every word. You knew exactly what you were doing. A small sob came from the other end of the line. I just didn't want my career to be ruined. I closed my eyes, feeling the rage rise in my chest. So you were willing to ruin me instead? No answer. I took a deep breath, regaining my composure. Are you calling to ask for forgiveness? No. Her voice was quieter now. I just wanted you to know. I'm really scared. I don't know what's going to happen to me. I tightened my grip on the phone. Stephanie, whatever happens to you now is the result of a choice you made long ago. She took a labored breath. I understand. I said nothing, then pressed the button to end the call. I set the phone down on the table and leaned back in my chair. They made a huge mistake thinking I wouldn't notice, thinking they could control me, manipulate me. But now, the truth was out, and I was no longer their pawn in this twisted game. The door to justice had opened, and I wasn't going to stop until they faced the consequences they deserved. 3 months later, the trial of Ethan and Stephanie officially began. I sat quietly in the witness box, my hands resting lightly on the cold wooden surface. The courtroom was thick with tension. The jury watched silently, and the prosecutor stood ready, each piece of evidence carefully prepared. In front of me, Ethan and Stephanie sat in the defendant's area, their faces gaunt and exhausted. The expensive suits and confident demeanor were gone, replaced by the pale look of people backed into a corner. The judge banged the gavel, signaling the start of the trial. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed, middle-aged woman, stood up. She walked toward the jury, her voice calm but heavy with weight. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is not just about a simple poisoning, she began, her eyes sweeping across the room. It is a coordinated conspiracy carried out over months, aimed at destroying a person, and more importantly, had it not been discovered in time, it could have resulted in death. She turned, her gaze cutting toward Ethan and Stephanie. The defendants didn't just intend to harm Ms. Zoe Patterson. They planned every detail. They monitored her reactions, gradually increased dosages, and tested how much she could endure. This wasn't impulsive, it was a calculated scheme. The courtroom fell silent, the only sound being the soft tapping of the judge's pen on the bench. The evidence was presented, one by one. The bottles of chemicals found in Ethan's office. The messages exchanged between him and Stephanie discussing dosages and timing. Documents meticulously recording my reactions after each poisoning. The recording from that morning, Ethan's panicked voice shouting that Stephanie had drunk the wrong cup. Each piece of evidence was like a blade, cutting through their defense. Ethan tried to keep his composure, but sweat dotted his forehead. He stared at the table, fists clenched, as if trying to control the situation. But there was nothing left to control. When it was my turn to testify, I walked slowly to the stand. The prosecutor approached, her voice firm. "Ms. Zoe, can you tell the jury about your experience?" I took a deep breath, eyes fixed on the jurors. It all started with mild stomach aches. At first, I thought it was just bad food or stress, but then things got stranger. Every time I was about to sign an important deal, I would fall mysteriously ill. I scanned the jury, my voice steady. No one suspected a thing because everything was arranged too perfectly, until that day when I realized something was wrong with my coffee. I recounted how I switched cups with Stephanie the moment she began convulsing, and Ethan's panicked confession I had recorded. Each word I spoke landed like a hammer blow on the two people sitting at the defendant's table. The prosecutor nodded. "Thank you, Zoe." She turned to the jury. No one should have to endure what she went through, and most importantly, if she hadn't been alert, if she had drunk that coffee, we might not be hearing her testimony today. The courtroom fell into a heavy, deadly silence. The trial lasted 3 weeks. During that time, I never once saw Ethan or Stephanie smile. Their attorneys tried to lessen the sentence, arguing that they only meant to weaken me, not kill me. But the jury wasn't convinced. When the verdict was delivered, the judge looked directly at the two of them, his voice calm but unyielding. Based on the evidence presented, the court finds that the defendants deliberately plotted to cause severe harm to the victim. This conduct is unacceptable and warrants the most severe sentence. He paused, glancing at the jury, before declaring, "Ethan Patterson and Stephanie Carter are hereby sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole." The judgment echoed like thunder through the courtroom. Stephanie nearly collapsed in her seat, while Ethan sat frozen, his face ghostly pale. I watched them, but I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, no sense of revenge. Only relief. They had destroyed themselves. Ethan's reputation was completely obliterated. His company announced his termination immediately after the sentencing. Stephanie lost her career as well. The contracts she had stolen from me were revoked instantly. Their lives had unraveled in a way they never saw coming. I stepped out of the courthouse and took a deep breath. The sun shone high in the sky, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something I thought I'd lost. Peace. I was finally free of them, and I knew this was my chance to rewrite my life. 1 year later, I stood on stage at the 2025 Marketing Summit in front of hundreds of executives, investors, and entrepreneurs. Dressed in a sleek navy business dress, I felt the stage lights warming my face, spreading through my body. I took a deep breath and looked straight into the crowd. Success doesn't just come from talent or hard work. Sometimes it comes from standing back up after being knocked down, from not letting anyone control your path. Applause broke out, but I wasn't finished. A year ago, I was betrayed by the people closest to me. They tried to weaken me, sabotage my career, went as far as risking my health to get what they wanted. But today, I'm standing here, stronger than ever. I caught a few heads nodding in the audience. They knew exactly what I meant. They too had been betrayed, maybe not poisoned, but undermined, shut out, dragged through the mud in the ruthless world of business. After the speech, I stepped off stage, shaking hands with several new partners. Zoe, your speech was incredible, said an executive from Sterling Marketing, offering me a friendly handshake. We're really looking forward to working with you on our upcoming project. I smiled. 1 year ago, Sterling Marketing was the contract Stephanie tried to steal from me at all costs, and now they were coming to me. My rise. After the trial ended, I spent months rebuilding my name. My old company asked me to come back with a higher salary, but I declined. I didn't want to return to a place that once allowed people like Ethan and Stephanie to thrive. Instead, I launched my own marketing consultancy. At first, people had doubts. Some thought I couldn't rebuild from scratch, that I'd be haunted by everything that had happened. But I didn't let any of that stop me. I threw myself into the work, landing major contracts and partnering with top corporations. Beyond that, I also began mentoring other women in marketing, those who had been bullied, overlooked, or sabotaged, just like I had been. 1 year later, Zoe Patterson Consulting had become one of the fastest growing marketing consultancies in the region. I was featured in business magazines, invited to speak at conferences, and most importantly, I had reclaimed myself. No more fear, no more feeling controlled. Ethan and Stephanie were now nothing more than forgotten names. I heard Ethan was trying to appeal, but no one cared. His reputation was completely destroyed. No company wanted to associate with someone who once conspired to poison his own wife. Stephanie wasn't doing any better. She had once been an ambitious marketing expert, but now no one in the industry even mentioned her name. Her former company fired her right after the trial ended, and every job opportunity vanished before her eyes. The ones who once tried to destroy me had now truly learned what it meant to be destroyed. But I didn't need to think about them anymore. I didn't feel anger or resentment because I had won. Not by getting revenge, but by moving forward. A new chapter. That evening, I sat alone at my favorite cafe, sipping a hot cappuccino. Coffee, the thing that once nearly took my life, was now a symbol of my freedom. I looked out the window, city lights reflecting off the glass. It had been a long time since I felt this peaceful. My phone buzzed on the table. An email from Henderson & Co., an international corporation looking to partner with my firm. I smiled softly and took another sip. Ethan and Stephanie once thought that if I failed, they would win. But what they never understood was, I don't fail, I just wait for the right moment to succeed even greater. Zoe's story isn't just about escaping betrayal, it's a testament to the power of resilience. In life, there will always be people who try to tear you down, manipulate you, and control your path. But instead of being consumed by anger, remember this. Success is the best revenge. Not everyone deserves your forgiveness, but you deserve a life free from toxic people. Stand up, keep moving forward, and let your success speak for itself. What do you think about Zoe's story? If you were in her shoes, how would you have responded? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss more powerful real-life stories about family and life.